Okay, hey YouTube. It has been a couple of weeks since I've made a video, and in my comments on my Facebook, I talked about the fact that one of my upcoming videos would be about getting clocked. And so, getting clocked means that your trans status is discovered or known, identified by somebody else, and typically they let you know that through their actions or behavior or their words. So they might say, hey, are you trans? Or, that's a man. They may do something even worse than that. Or they may just say, huh, that's interesting, didn't realize that, and just kind of go about their day. Typically, trans people see getting clocked as a bad thing, particularly if they're folks who generally blend in, who aren't visibly trans, or are stealth. Because if you're stealth, you kind of have the highest cost associated with being clocked, because that could, if you're not out at work, if you're not out in your relationships or your social circles, having your trans status discovered could potentially change how people interact with you. It could change your employment. It could have a lot of implications. And I can't really sort of speak to that because I'm not really deep stealth. I'm kind of, functional stealth, but for the most part, not really too worried if somebody discovers my trans status. However, I'm also not really visibly trans either, which means that this isn't something that happens to me very often, but it is something that does happen. And, I was actually clocked even a few weeks ago watching a basketball game out at a bar and kind of having a couple of drinks, rooting for Carolina. The game ended up being much too close for my comfort. Thankfully, we won. But, it's just, the guy comes up to me and asks, "You're a guy, right?" And I give him this look like, "What are you talking about, huh?" And I say, "No, I'm not a guy." And so then he says, "Oh, well, I just thought because your voice is so deep that, you were kind of one of those trans, whatever." I don't remember exactly what he said. It's not important anyway. Because my response was, "Well, no, I'm not, whatever. It's okay." And he goes, "Oh, well, I'm just sorry," or whatever. And I said, and that's when I started to get bothered, because it's like, well, what are you apologizing for? And basically, he says that he's apologizing because, it's obviously insulting for, to ask a woman, are you a man? Are you trans? And that's essentially what he said. And that's when I kind of lit into him, and I was like, well, actually, that kind of thinking right there is really what's offensive and what you should apologize for, because being trans doesn't make you less of a woman. It doesn't mean that you're not a woman. And this kind of attitude and behavior is, it's offensive. And it's like, why does somebody's gender or their trans or cis status even matter to you? And, kind of lit him up a little bit. And I felt pretty good about that. And that's how I reacted to that particular case. And I think that, I think that helps that now I'm in a much different place than I was a couple years ago or earlier in my transition, where my reaction may have been a little bit different, where maybe I was a little bit more ashamed of my trans status. And, as a result, I, might not have said anything about it. I might have left the bar embarrassed, or I might have not stood up for trans people and just gotten him to, sort of leave me alone. And I think that is the big thing when it comes to how do you react to getting clocked. Is kind of like, well, what is your life context? What do you feel comfortable doing? And even kind of what kind of mood are you in? Because I don't necessarily feel the need to educate every cis person that I encounter. And you know, so sometimes I may just say, no, what are you talking about? Or other times I may have long, drawn out conversations about, well, what does it mean to be trans in society? And it really depends on the person, who you're getting clocked by, how they're clocking you, kind of how safe you feel in that environment, and kind of where you are in your own life, in your own transition, and things like that.